All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Health Transformation webinar. Really excited to be here with you guys today. This is Cade Archibald. And we're going to have a lot of fun. So today is the topic today that we're going to be going over is cholesterol debunked. And so just some things about this. Or just to kind of give you guys a heads up, obviously I was here last week. Hopefully you enjoyed learning a little bit more on electrosmog and seeing some of the things that some of the strategies to avoid EMFs and all those different things. So if you haven't had a chance, take a look at last week's webinar. Download the ebook on electrosmog. Some really cool stuff. So this week we're going to be talking about business. Wow. We're going to be talking about some really cool business around cholesterol. So we're going to be debunking cholesterol. So let's dive in there. So some things on this topic is, cholesterol, and I think it's becoming more and more known that eating cholesterol doesn't necessarily create more cholesterol, but you do need, there's a few key things that you need to look at. But yeah, those of you that are out there thinking, well, my cholesterol's high, I can't eat eggs because they have cholesterol, different things, that's not necessarily the biggest problem that you may have. So today, for the Instagram world here, I'm actually going to share my screen with you guys so you can, or I'll just show it so you guys can actually see some of the content that we're going over here today. I'll get this adjusted for you. Let's see here. Give me just a second. There we are. So does not want to. All right. So hopefully you guys can see that all right. So we're going to be diving in. So this is part of our health transformation course, but we'll dive in here. For those of you on the webinar, if you have any questions, type it in the chat box. Love to answer those, as well as Instagram. Feel free to put in some comments, questions, anything there. So let's dive in here. So some things that we're going to cover really briefly, and we may not get to all these different points, but we'll be talking about how blood sugar is really important and how that impacts or how cholesterol impacts your blood sugar and vice versa. We'll also be diving into how to transition from high carb to low carb. So what are some of those different foods? So let's dive in. So just some quick things. So, and we've talked a lot about this, but some different ways to just make sure you have a good macronutrient ratios. And obviously you want to find nutrient dense foods within these, but some of the key factors, you got to get at least 130 to 150 grams a day of healthy fats. Now, this is where a lot of people get a little bit concerned. Okay, well, if I'm intaking a lot of fat, is that going to increase? Am I going to get fat off my fats? And you've probably seen a lot of things about keto diets and all these different low carb diets. And I wouldn't necessarily say you need to just cut out all your carbs, because carbs can, there's some good attributes of carbs as well, but you really need to get more fat in your body so your body can be using fat as a fuel source. And that's the key thing that you need to change the mindset on, is if I can get my body utilizing fat to burn fat, to use it as an energy source, then you got bountiful amounts of energy just in your body if you don't eat, right? No, that's at least me, right? There's that nice little pocket down in your belly. No, but those things can, if you get your body into that state, then you can burn fat a lot faster and easier. And that's why some of those keto diets and things like that are so much more gaining so much popularity. So you still want to have at least 20 to 100 healthy grams of carbs. So, from a carb standpoint, this could be sweet potatoes. They got some really good resistant starch, really good for the gut bacteria. So sweet potatoes, you can also get it from some of your, yams or vegetables, like a lot of leafy greens, really important. And then about 100 to 150 healthy grams of protein. So, and just so you guys know, on the healthy carb side of things, like 2 pounds of vegetables a day. This would be ideally, some really good leafy greens, maybe not so much carrots, things like that. But if you do, a lot of, more deep greens, that's going to be ideal. And then some good healthy proteins that come from, grass-fed or wild-caught animals. So that's ideal. So let's talk about this. Maybe if you've ever been told my cholesterol numbers are high, or you've ever thought, well, I don't want to increase my cholesterol. So this is a study that came out in 2015, found that triglycerides to HDL ratio is the most significant marker of cardiovascular mortality. So that's your perceived good cholesterol. So the HDL, that is, and that ratio between your triglycerides and your HDL is extremely important. So they took 374 high-risk heart patients. There was no significant relation to total cholesterol with coronary disease. So your total cholesterol numbers, stop stressing about that. Don't get on a statin just because your total cholesterol number is high. That's typically the number that most people are looking at, thinking, oh my gosh, my cholesterol is too high. The most significant link is that ratio between triglycerides and HDL. So triglycerides, if your triglycerides are elevated, let me talk. I'll kind of dive into that in a second here, but I really like this slide. It's hilarious. But the importance of cholesterol is that's what helps keep us together. Our liver makes 75% of the body's cholesterol. So your liver health is really important to healthy cholesterol levels. So if your cholesterol levels are off, you got to look at your liver and figure out how you can create some better detoxification, clean that liver, give it a break so it can start producing appropriate amounts of cholesterol. Your brain's made of fat and cholesterol. If you eliminate all the cholesterol in your body, or if you reduce it significantly, obviously you don't want to turn into this gal here, but if you just reduced all your cholesterol, or a significant amount of cholesterol, you will have some memory, brain fog, things like that. That's why fats are such a good fuel for your brain. And so you want to be fueling that brain so you can have proper neurotransmitter function. So what about my cholesterol number? So and this is in an additional study. They took obese subjects, sub 20 gram carb keto diet, decreased total cholesterol, LDL, triglycerides, and blood glucose. In contrast, there was a significant increase in HDL. The study lasted 56 weeks. So this was over a year. And their health markers were consistent through 7 different tests at 8-week intervals. So this really shows you, by eating more fat or more cholesterol and all those things, that doesn't necessarily cause issues with cholesterol. Some different foods to avoid. And so these are foods. So if you're, eating foods that are creating more oxidative stress and inflammation, that's what elevates your cholesterol. An interesting thing about cholesterol, it's very anti-inflammatory. And so if your body is in an inflammatory state, what would you have? Would your cholesterol numbers be elevated or decreased? Let's see if we can get some comments there. So yes, you're right. They would be increased. And so when you go to when you get tested and you're told, okay, you got high cholesterol, you should be on a medication, your heart disease risk. The real question shouldn't be, okay, yeah, or the real, you shouldn't be thinking, okay, yeah, I got to get my cholesterol down. The real question should be, why? Why is my cholesterol elevated? Okay, what can I do? Okay, I need it. Obviously, there's something inflammatory happening in my body. How can I reduce my inflammation? First step is look at the foods that you're eating. Refined and added sugars, bleached and refined flours, industrial plant oils. They can be very, very inflammatory. You got to be really careful with those oils that they're utilizing. Just traditional vegetable oil. It can be very, very inflammatory. You want to get very pure, clean oils. Any artificial ingredients or just processed packaged foods. And then the big five. So, and you've heard Aaron, our health coach, talk about these, and we talk about these in a lot of different webinars, but your gluten, dairy, soy, corn, peanuts, those can all increase inflammation in the body, which if cholesterol is a natural anti-inflammatory in your body, that's obviously going to increase your levels. Another way to look at it, so from a glucose and a blood sugar perspective, really interesting how, so if you look at this diagram here, you have your healthy pancreas. When you get glucose that enters the bloodstream, it'll push out insulin, which insulin creates, there's a little receptor on your cell site, which opens up the gates for glucose to come in. And so your cells can start utilizing glucose appropriately. And so what happens in the event of, so take type 1 diabetes, for example, that's when you have an autoimmune issue and you have antibodies attacking your pancreas. So your pancreas can't even produce insulin. And then obviously you're going to have elevated glucose consistently because there's no insulin to help push the glucose into the cell. Compared to a type 2 diabetes, or and this can even happen in the beginning stages of insulin resistance, is what happens is the cells, so your pancreas is still producing insulin, so you're pushing insulin. Glucose is there. It's trying to get into the cells, but your cell is not recepting insulin. It's ultimately insulin resistant. And what causes insulin resistance is inflammation. The cells, especially the cells with the receptor site for insulin on your cells, are very sensitive. And so if you have too much inflammation there, the insulin will not be able to connect to this insulin receptor site. So it's very important to remove anything that's causing inflammation in the body. And so I have a couple other interesting studies that I'd like to share with you guys. I'm going to change the share there real quick. Let's see here. So I wanted to show you guys a couple other things. All right, I'll make this bigger for y'all. All right, so if you look at Um, so, you just look at using cholesterol, linking cholesterol to this is interesting. In 95, there's no evidence linking high cholesterol levels in women with heart disease. This is a huge study. They took 33,000 people. This came out of New England Journal of Medicine. And they said that medications did not reduce heart disease despite lower blood pressure, lower blood sugar, lower cholesterol, nor a combination of those. In fact, the study revealed devastating side effects, including increased risk of cardiac event. So what happens in these instances is, and this is what our healthcare system's been designed around, is we are a society that loves that kind of instant the instant satisfaction, or that instant gratification. And so our numbers drop. It looks like, okay, yeah, our cholesterol levels are lower. My blood sugar looks better because I'm taking this pill. But at the end of the day, that's not fixing the underlying problem. That doesn't eliminate the inflammation in the body. Even if you're taking, like, say, an ibuprofen or an NSAID, that's not stopping inflammation. That just calms down those inflammatory sites, and then they come right back as soon as that medication blocker is out of the system. And so you have to look at getting to the root cause and actually figure out what is causing inflammation in my body. If you look at cholesterol, like I mentioned before, it's an anti-inflammatory, and so obviously that's going to be elevated if there's issues there. Also, if you have thyroid problems, your cholesterol levels are going to be off. The reason being, your thyroid creates a receptor site on your cell for cholesterol to be utilized. So some things about cholesterol: the parent molecule of sex hormones. So if you don't have cholesterol, your testosterone is going to be off. A lot of your estrogen numbers, a lot of your hormones are going to be off. It can help with producing bile, or ultimately creating better digestion. It helps with your cell membranes, your immune system, vitamin D synthesis. If you don't have cholesterol, your body doesn't work. 25% of your brain is cholesterol. It's very necessary for memory, learning, fast thinking. It helps. It's very necessary for creating neurotransmitters that send signals in your brain. The sad thing is in even today, and I think people are getting more and more aware and familiar with this, but we are seeing statin drugs continually pushed, and people are being prescribed these things for elevated cholesterol levels. 1 in 2 senior men and 1 in 3 senior women are taking these. Some side effects of these medications: they deplete your CoQ10. So that's like an elasticity thing. It helps with joint health, helps with heart health, really creates better elasticity in your cell membranes and your joints. And so if you start depleting CoQ10, you're going to feel muscle weakness, achy. Obviously, it's going to reduce your sex hormones, affects your memory because it's reducing the cholesterol to your brain. Can interfere with serotonin receptors. Those are like your feel-good receptors. So yeah, there's a lot of negative side effects here. So, and this is an interesting statement from Dr. Sinatra. He's brilliant in the cardiac world. So a cholesterol level of 160 milligrams or less has been linked to depression, aggression, cerebral hemorrhage, and loss of sex drive. So if your cholesterol levels are less than 160, which they consider 200, and I think it might even be 180 is too high, they keep changing these cholesterol metrics, getting tighter and tighter. So we can dish out more statin drugs. It's pretty wild. But cholesterol, ultimately today, biggest thing I want you guys to learn and take away is cholesterol can be very good. If you've taken some tests, your cholesterol's off, then the real question is why. And typically what we found with those instances is it's because of some sort of inflammatory response. There's four main reasons why someone would have inflammation internally. And so that can be through physical traumas, chemical. So that's like the foods you're putting in your body, the air that you're breathing in, if you got a lot of pollutants, maybe the work environment, if you're in manufacturing and you're exposed to a lot of chemicals or toxins throughout the day. Those are all things that can contribute to inflammation internally. Emotional stress. And this is the thing that I think us as just driven people, we forget to take care of ourselves and create some self-care. And so having good self-care practices, not letting things get under our skin so easily, and just ultimately making sure we're taking care of ourselves. Because as soon as you get it, that spike in cortisol and that spike in your stress response, your body goes into this fight or flight mode. And that's when exercise can be really important. That's when meditation, mindfulness, and really just taking in and being grateful for the life that you have. And last thing is infection. So, if you have a lot of inflammation going on, you want to fix your surroundings, make sure you take care of what's coming in, your emotional side of things. You also want to look at what's happening in my digestive system, what's happening elsewhere in my body. Is there an underlying infection that can cause significant amount of inflammation as well? And a lot of times, just on basic blood work, you will not see signs of infection, and so it's really important to look at those. So hope you guys feel like you understand what causes higher cholesterol. So obviously inflammation. If you're ever looking, so some different key or a few little tricks or hacks for those of you that are really data driven. If you look at your blood work and you see your triglycerides are elevated, maybe all your other cholesterol numbers are normal or not. But if your triglycerides are up, more than likely what's happening is you have a insulin resistance going on, even if your glucose numbers are normal. It's pretty wild how cholesterol and blood sugar go hand in hand, because what happens is similar with insulin. So if that insulin resistance is not happening, that means there's going to be that inflammation point where insulin cannot be or is not pushing glucose into the cell. So you're creating this initial inflammatory response, and so your triglycerides start increasing. Another marker to look at, more related to blood sugar, would be LDH, so that's your lactic acid dehydrase. If someone's got low blood sugar issues, like maybe they're just not fueling their body enough, you're going to see that number decrease, and that could indicate insulin resistance, potential inflammatory responses. Inversely, if you do have high blood sugar, that's going to impact your LDH as well. Similar problem where there's inflammatory response. It can be, so some ways to increase your good cholesterol, decrease your triglycerides, is really good exercise program and food. So the food that we put in is essential. So some of those foods that I mentioned before. Here, I'll pull up that slide. Sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth between presentations here. But those 5 main foods, really important. You got to switch the share screen here. So avoiding those refined foods and getting back to eating good clean fats. So if you see this plate, this is a plate that you'd want to be more attracted to. Not that doesn't necessarily, it's not a bad plate. So some good healthy proteins, some good vegetables, and a moderate amount of your carbs and starches. Resistant starch with sweet potatoes, yams. You can really good dense leafy greens. Avocados are a good source of fat. So get these things in your diet. Get a good exercise program where you have at least some high intensity where you can burn off some of that glucose as well as some of the inflammation, because that your triglycerides and your HDL will increase with increased activity, and your triglycerides will decrease, and then your HDL to triglyceride ratio will be significantly improved, and your heart health is going to be improved. And so love you guys so much. Thank you for joining me today. And next week we'll be diving into I think we're diving into more customized nutrition and some cool things around that. And so we'll be back same time, same place next week. If you have issues with cholesterol, you need help with designing something, give us a call. You can go to our website at acueastwest.com. Work with our team. Love you guys very much and have an amazing day. We'll see y'all. Bye-bye.